I'm Matt Reynolds, and this is my podcast.
I can do the job, but running the business is quite difficult. What a lot of tradesmen lack, and I was probably one of them, is business skills.
I don't mind making mistakes. You learn from your mistakes.
Information is all around you in the minds of people that work beside you.
Welcome back to the Trench Talk podcast. I'm your host, Matt Reynolds, and today I spoke with John Vuong, the founder and president of Local SEO Search, an award-winning SEO, that's search engine optimization, company out of Toronto in Canada. The idea of these discussions, for those of you joining us for the first time, is to go into the trenches of achievement and talk not with people who are orchestrating from some lofty perspective, but to those high performers who are actually in the trenches, honing their craft. That has included guests from the worlds of business, sport, and entertainment, all of whom are on the front lines doing amazing things. John is a seasoned sales professional and internet marketer with an exceptional track record helping companies grow their clientele and profits. Through 15 years of experience working with CEOs, business owners, and marketing leaders across some of Canada's most successful corporations, John developed a deep understanding of local marketing dynamics and consumer behaviour. John's entrepreneurial spirit and experience working with more than 5,000 local business owners inspired him to start his own company, Local SEO Search, in 2013. A graduate of the University of Western Ontario, John earned his Bachelor of Administrative and Commercial Studies, ACS, in 2003. His career began at the Yellow Pages Group, where he was among the top 2% of sales representatives across Canada. Now a proud father, John enjoys coaching and mentoring new entrepreneurs and runs an annual school supply campaign to help deserving young people in elementary and primary grades. Local SEO Search also provides free education to small business owners through live events and their podcast, Local SEO Today. During our chat, we covered a lot, including why a solid foundation and sound business is required before thinking about SEO, why becoming a thought leader is so important in online marketing, understanding your ideal clients and why your online competition may well be very low, how to rank well in Google search, keywords and how to use them, the Google My Business product and why it's so important for businesses, website musts that help with online marketing, and as always, much more. You can find out more about John's company at localseosearch.ca, or you can track him down personally on LinkedIn. If you enjoy Trench Talk, head to xrm.com.au/podcast and opt in for the newsletter. We'll make sure you're notified when every new episode of the show is released. Trench Talk is available everywhere good podcasts are served. So if you're feeling super nice, please leave a review, comment, rating, or whatever your chosen podcast platform allows. Enjoy this chat with John Vuong. John, thanks for doing this.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Matt.
Now, I'm in my home office here in Melbourne, Australia this morning, but it's your evening being up in Canada. So appreciate you hanging around. You at home? Are you at the office? Where are you coming to us exactly from?
Yeah, so I'm based here in Toronto, Canada, so a little far away from where you are. But yeah, I'm basically working from home. I've been situated and I started this company home-based, and that's where all my staff have been working. Like, they're all remote.
Oh, really? Now, I did want to get into your backstory, so we should start there. And during a bit of research for this conversation, I found somewhere online that you actually started this SEO company before you had a laptop, which is kind of the reverse order of the way that things are often done, right? So, is it true, and how did it go that way?
Yeah, definitely. So a little before I started, so back in 2013, that's when I started this agency, not knowing anything about business in general. So before that, I actually worked at a fairly large company called Yellow Pages. So I was there for over 5 years. And that's where I actually refined my art, learned a lot about sales and marketing, advertising in general, and really worked with thousands of local business owners, right? Getting to know what their key decision-making process is and why they stick with a company and what's their loyalty process is, right? Therefore, when I worked there, I found out a lot of these business owners just wanted to get good results. All they cared about was going with a company, reasonable price, reasonable people they can trust that are loyal, but take care of them along the way, right? And that's what happened decades and decades until Google came around, right? Until the internet came around. And that kind of replaced what people were kind of doing in terms of looking for businesses. And nowadays, I mean, maybe it was 10 years ago, I would say that's when the transition happened, where more and more people were spending more time in front of a computer, not consuming businesses the traditional way, magazines, newspapers, flyers, directories, right? Radio, television, and moving towards more internet searches. And for me, that's when a lot of these business owners, when I was working there, wanted to move away from Yellow Pages. And that's why I started this, because there was a need and demand. I was in sales, and these people approached me and told me on a daily basis, I just hated what I had at Yellow Pages and I wanted to move my dollars. Can you help me, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I moved there. And not knowing anything about SEO, I was more sales marketing and I had relationships built. That's how I started this company, from, I guess, the complete opposite, but I guess I was fortunate enough to have that skill set of sales.
So it was really understanding what your customers were going through and then kind of building a business to that, right? Because even now, 10 years into the Google way of doing things, if you want to put it that way, some of this stuff, to those of us that aren't in your position, it still can be a little bit daunting, but it really is as simple as just being where your customers are looking to buy from, right? That's really what it comes down to.
Exactly. And Google is a great platform. I mean, that's a very good medium today because people will Google it, right? If they're not sure, they'll either ask on Google Home or Alexa or whatever, or they'll go on their smartphone, desktop, laptop, and just Google it. Traditionally, when they were looking for a business, it was always that phone book, right? Because they knew it was the most comprehensive business directory that was refreshed and updated annually. But today, Google is more real time and it's user centric and it's catered towards your behavior and your history. So it's all catered towards personalization more than anything, and it's real time. So people can get information right away, like news, any videos, anything, like, not just business queries, but how-to videos as well, like if you want to do it yourself.
Of course. And can you just give us a little bit on your company, exactly what you're doing, and maybe in terms of size and your clients and that, just so we can understand who you're working with specifically?
Yeah, definitely. So I started this company 7 years ago, and at the beginning, I really focused on localized business owners, because local being, I did work at Yellow Pages. I worked with small, medium-sized businesses doing a couple $100,000 in revenue up to $20 million annual. With either one crew, if you're in trades, one crew up to 10 crews, or you're a dentist, lawyer, you name it, personalized service-based kind of businesses, but servicing the local community. So over the years, 75% of my clients are still those type of clients, service-based, and 25% are more B2B, which is national and international in scope. Because as you know, SEO is anyone who's searching, all you want to do is become more visible when they are searching for the opportunity for them to click on your site and hopefully have a lead or a transaction from it. Overall, I've grown, but I've also wanted to make sure that I take care of my core group of people, which is I still resonate with small business owners because I feel like I'm one myself. So I can really see the value of helping and supporting a local cause in a community-based business owner versus a very large company that's really in it for different purposes.
And I did find one thing, or a couple of things we did have in common to do with the start of our journey, is that you're still waiting for the call from some NBA club, right, to welcome you to their roster and get going. So I had that dream early on for a long time, and you also delivered papers and went down that road for a little while as well. So you've had a variety of jobs in your past, which has led to the, obviously starting this business and doing it really successfully and helping other people along the way. So I wanted to jump into some specific sort of SEO stuff, and maybe we might start pretty basic and then we might end up in some weeds somewhere along the way and get some of the latest things that are working and that sort of thing. So what's most important? Where do you start? Is it building a website? Is it getting on social? Where do you go from in the very beginning?
Yeah. First off, I always tell people is take care of your business. Make sure you have a solid foundation of knowing who your clients are and what is your unique selling prop, what's the services and products that you're offering, and really understand who your major competitors are, differentiators, right? So all these foundational things of running a business, you should already be running a really solid business. Don't expect your business to pick up if you're not really taking care of your existing base, right? So even though you're ranking, but you have a poor review and reputation in the industry and market, that's not going to help you in any way if you're out there more often. It may help you short term, but in the long term, it's really going to have more detrimental impact for your business. So first off, you need to understand if you've been doing your business and running it for years and multi years, like 5-10 years, you already have a solid base of clients. You know who you want to target to. Who are your ideal customers? What is that profile looking like? The demographics, the regions, the services you want to offer, who they are. Once you understand that as a business owner, that's where SEO can really refine and help you target more of your ideal customers. Because end of the day, there's so many different ways and mediums to advertise into, from social media, like you mentioned, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter, etc. But also there's email, there's different digital marketing ads that you can advertise on. And of course, traditional media as well, right? Which is still the local newspaper, flyer, benches, creative ads, etc. There's a lot going on and people are in front of so much, like they get bombarded all the time, right? Disrupted. What you want to do is have the users be in control. So position yourself as a thought leader, authoritative figure. So what we always advise all our clients is make sure you run a good business, know what you're talking about, and we will help you elevate you as that expert, that authoritative thought leader by making sure that you refine what you're doing and vocalize that digitally on a digital platform. So that elevates you even further. And then the average consumer will then notice you more because those people, it's all about getting in front of more people that don't know who you are. Because people who know you are already branded, they already can refer you. But it's the unknowns, which is unknown keywords that people are searching for that might be of interest for others.
I love what you said there because marketing or SEO or any of these techniques or whatever are never going to negate the need to have a good business, but sit behind it, right? So very, very important to understand that as a first step. So once you have that, you feel like maybe you've been in business for a few years, you feel like you've got a good handle on the type of customers that you want to deal with. What's the next step? Because there's a lot of options out there. It is confusing. So do you build a website? Do you get on SEO? Where do you go from there in a first step?
So I always tell people building a website is foundational because Google, you need a website to start ranking and building authority, right? So not only building a decent website, because websites change and you always want to stay on top of what's new and refreshing in terms of a look and design and UX. So the big thing is stay current. You shouldn't be using different templated stuff. Try to customize as much as possible, personalize as much as possible, and make it your own. Different brand, different content, but personalize, let people know about your journey, your story, because it's different. That's what's unique because everyone's doing pretty much the same service and product in the industry in every single market. So what is different is how you got to where you are. So put that information on there and then build a website. Make sure you do a lot of keyword research analysis, some competitive analysis in terms of what other people are ranking for and where you want to be positioned. Because you don't want to dominate everywhere. All you need to do is dominate a niche. And the more focused you are, the easier it is to rank and the easier it is for you to gain business, get leads. Because people want to go after very generic terms like plumbers or tree service or dentist. But the more hyper focused you are, like emergency drain service or septic tank service, whatever it is, the more longer tail it is, it will be less clicks or search results, but people who are searching are ready to buy. So the conversion rate's a lot higher and it's easier to rank as well.
It can be daunting, but when you have got a local business, when you know your customer first of all, and then you break down the customer that you can actually serve, there's often not a lot of competition, and certainly not a lot of competition in the online space, right? Because being a plumber or an electrician or whatever, or a hairdresser or dentist, if you're trying to service just that local area, you're really only competing against the others in that space. So once you sort of forget about the rest of the web that's out there that you could go to and hone in on those things, then it does become a lot simpler, right?
Exactly. And less competition, like you mentioned, right? Because you're localized in a community. I'm in Toronto, so it's fairly competitive. But if you start going into neighborhoods and even like street corners, because people understand in the community these corners. So mention parks, mention neighborhoods or schools and regions, right? And that's how people are now searching. So you can get a lot more volume search queries, people that are searching near me, right? Those searches on mobile, because people are now like accustomed to wanting to find things on smartphones as opposed to desktops.
Just because it's quicker, which comes back to the UX or the user experience that we want as consumers. And I guess if you think as a consumer, when you're doing your advertising, it sort of puts you in the right frame of mind for maybe where your customers are as well. So when you're putting content on your site, that's what you're talking about with your keywords, and you want to talk about the services that you provide and offer in the areas that you service. Where do we go after we sort of have that, mapped out from a website perspective?
So not only do you need a website, you need to make sure that it's loading very quickly. Images are crisp, personalized as well, compressed so that mobile is quick. Make sure your website is SSL certified. So for you, it's really like secured site. Google gives that as signal as well. Make sure that your website, it actually serves a purpose and answers a question. So the content should really be about depth and well-researched using your information versus someone else's, right? Like don't copy other people that are ranking, like make it your own, personalize as much as possible.
Which happens
and
a
then,
lot.
Of course, right? And make it your own. Like your website, it's about you, your story, your journey, your brand. So as much information you can put on there. And then that's just the on page. So make sure there's no errors. Google's always refreshing their algorithm on a daily basis. But that's the technical aspect of it. First, you need hosting, your domain name, a website design. Make sure that speed is fast. But then after that is done, of course, you need to make sure your brand is out there, right? So you need to make sure you have certain social media pages set up and put your information out there as much as possible. So that's the hard part, right? Which is building authority, which is getting your name out there. And links is a huge component of ranking a website today. What that means is having other people mention you or talk about you, and they link back to your website. The more of those that are more industry specific or relevant to your geographic area, there's a lot of factors and different anchor texts like ratios and authority from the other sites. There's the whole space of links is pretty, hard to understand unless you're in the space yourself.
And if you bring it back to an offline scenario, right, it's just that old case of who knows you, who's got your business card, who knows to point people to you, right? It's just the digital version of that, really. And there's a number of ways. Well, I should ask you, how do you build these links? I mean, very basic. I know back when I started, we submitted all of our information to all the directories and search engines and all that sort of stuff. But beyond that, maybe you can expand on this, but you can also write for industry publications that can possibly be online and these sort of things as well, which helps build your, not only, I guess, your personal brand, but certainly the authority, as you said, of your website in your marketplace.
Exactly. So what you mentioned there was directory submission and citation building, which is very free and easy to do. So you can go into your Yellow Pages, Yelp, or 411 and different sites and just submit yourself, right? What's more difficult, the challenge with those links are they're usually no follow links and there's no real authority being passed back to you because it's free. So what you want to do is position yourself and have as much natural links coming back to you as possible. And this revolves around a lot of different aspects. But if you position yourself as a thought leader, and what I mean by that is start writing good content, which is blogs and writing for other sites and as a contributor or whatever it is. And it takes time. It's like running a business that has been running offline for generations, not just like 1 or 2 years. Like millennials today, they're all about hacks, right? They want to get as quick as possible. But running a business is never like that. It takes time, a lot more time than you think. It costs you a lot more money, and you're going to make tons more mistakes than you've ever imagined, right? So running a business is not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be running the business. So think about like that whole aspect of offline. Link building is like a referral, like you mentioned, where people are passing you around, like word of mouth referrals. But now on the digital space, if you go out there and network, you may talk to 1 or 2 people, and you may have to go to 10, 20 events to actually get one lead. That's what a link should be, right? It takes you time to get a link. It's very similar to like speaking events or just hosting your own event. The more you're out there, the more information you're providing and giving, eventually you'll start garnishing more links because you're actually doing people a service, which is helping them and educating them or informing them.
Yeah, and a good example of this would be you and my podcast today, right? Your site will get a couple of links on my site, and you do a number of podcast interviews. I know that, and you get them spread around the web, which points back to you and your business and what you're doing, and helps push your site up the Google rankings, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of factors. So for me, I actually enjoy podcasting. I enjoy helping people and educating people. So that's the reason I have my own podcast. The reason why we do podcasts is really to, not change the world, but just impact one person at a time. Hopefully someone sees value, and hopefully someone can be touched or get some insight that I can make a difference in their lives. And that's what podcasting and SEO is about. Like, helping people out where they need it, and hopefully we're making a difference, and hopefully they can support their family and their cause or whatever it may be.
Of course, and it's a giving game, right? If you think about it in those terms, then it's a lot easier to play for a long period of time, I would have thought.
Exactly.
So I have a couple of specific questions about websites regarding, first of all, photos and pictures, and then videos. Yep. So when you're loading photos onto your site, my understanding is that they should be named with something that someone would probably search as well, right? So there's that, and then there's this thing which I don't really understand a whole lot, which is the alt tags. Can you maybe talk a little bit about why you need to name your photos and why you need to have that information in the content that you're loading?
Yeah, so alt image tags, think about Google, right? There's web searches, there's image searches, there's video searches, and people are searching different ways today. Images has an ability for keywords to be put in there. So for you and your site, you want to make it easy for Google's indexing, which is their crawlers, to detect what that image is associated to. So make it as relevant to that page as possible. So if you have a service page on emergency plumbing, for instance, have an image that also says emergency plumbing that is relevant to one of your jobs that you can use. So it's not like copyright infringing on anything. And make sure that it's easy and relevant to that page. So the more in sync it is, the better it is. And make it a habit. Everything you do should be focused on making it easy for Google to detect what you're talking about on your page, right? So the more H1 tags, title tags, descriptions that are relevant to that page, even the URL, that is easy for Google to then crawl and index, then not only does Google like it, but also your users, because you're going to scroll down that first page and see what matches your search query. And then you'll have a higher conversion rate if it matches the user intent. So it's all about like making sure that you just do best practices, right? Everything you do off page should be on page as well.
Yeah. So as for video, we all like watching videos, right? So is that an important factor to have on your website? And if so, what type of video? Should it be a how-to? Should it be educational? What are your thoughts on that?
People consume content in various ways. Written, images, infographics, images, video, like on YouTube or Vimeo or whatnot. And then, of course, there's the audio as well, which is what we're doing, which is podcasting, right? So my suggestion is understand your ideal customer. How do they consume content, right? And if it is social, like Instagram, which is pictures only, I would say focus on that. Get high quality images and target your audience. But if it is like videos, like how to and instructional, because you have to understand where they're at in terms of the buyer journey. If it's early stages and you need them to really understand who you are and what kind of services you offer, and they don't understand who you are yet. So you need to convince them that you are an expert. So these how-to and guides are great in terms of instructional. But when they're ready to buy, then it's really close to transaction time. So they're going to type in an actual service that they're looking for, and usually a local market. So when they land on your website, on that page, you need to convince them that you know what you're talking about. So written, images, videos, any way that will guide them to then make that call to action of lead form or call. So it all depends on that customer and how you want to position yourself. So a lot of people always look at just that buying transaction thing, which is at the end of the funnel, right? But what I always say is first, you got to educate people, then get to the point where they know the services you offer. And then after the fact, how's your customer service? So search is all about every single multifaceted touch point, consuming different platforms and content and different ways to educate the consumer. But really, it's all about like making sure you put as much information, as much detail as possible based on your ideal customer. And of course, if you have the ability to create videos all the time and you have good production, go for it. But a lot of business owners don't have the time and resources and know-how, right? So I always say, as much as you can do, personalize with images. That's as good as you can get. And alt image tags, just name it appropriately, will do, right? And suffice. Because that's a lot more than the average business owner already.
True. And again, in your local market.
Exactly.
That becomes more and more impressive, right? So you mentioned the transaction there. For most service type businesses, you can kind of forget about that digitally in the beginning, right? Because if you're a hairdresser or a plumber, you're educating people to then take them to an offline environment. You can't plumb, at least in the traditional sense, yet through the internet. So you've got to be in front of them. You're probably still going to do that manual transaction anyway. So you can kind of forget about that at this point and focus on the education and just bringing people into the business. We've talked a lot about Google. Do you worry at all about other search engines, Yahoo, Bing? Google Maps is a big part of it. Do you worry about Apple Maps? Do you play in that space at all or not?
Yeah, so Google Maps is the local 3-pack. I really focus on that as well as organic, which is below the 3-pack of the map.
And you're talking about when you type in a search term, just for somebody who doesn't understand that, there's a box at the top of the page that comes up in Google, and there's always 3 featured businesses which come right under the map. And if I'm remembering correctly, the only thing that would ever appear above that is a paid ad.
Exactly. So I stay away from ads. I really focus on positioning business owners on the map and below, because that's more organic in nature. And consumers, users, understand that they don't want to be pushed ads. People hate being sold. Just like on Facebook, whenever you see an ad, it's disrupting your frame of thought where you are going there to look at your Facebook feeds, right? Your friends, your family, what's going on. Same with Instagram, same with all these different social media platforms, right? I hate YouTube ads, but it happens because someone needs to monetize, which is Google, right? So as a consumer, if you are the average consumer and you typically go on the map and below, that's where you want to be placed, right? As a business owner. Because if 80%, say 75% of the people are clicking there, that's where you want to play. And the conversion rate's a lot higher because you're already in a frame of mind, because people are already so far on that buying cycle, they're seeking you out, seeking that service or product out. So that all you need to do is be more visible, and hopefully that will translate into positioning yourself. They check out your reviews, they check out that you're ranking fairly well, you have a decent website, and you know what you're talking about. And then they're going to take on that next step of narrowing it down to 2 or 3 vendors quoting you. And all you need to do is sound good, make sure you answer all the questions on the phone, and you're more of like a lead gen service where you're basically just offering that product or service over the phone, and hopefully that will translate to a sale.
So when you're doing your on-website SEO, does that also count for being in Yahoo and that sort of thing as well? they'll all
Yes.
pick it up. They just have different ways of displaying, and their algorithms are obviously going to be different to Google. So, but it all counts to help be found in those spaces as well.
Yeah, so Yahoo and Bing are two major search engines. One's owned by Microsoft. So they're preloaded as the default search engine, like Internet Explorer kind of thing. Yahoo, it's its own beast. But I always play in the field of where do consumers, that average customer, play. So if 90+% are using Google, that's where you want to play. Because if you're investing your money on Yahoo and Bing and it's only a small percentage, does it make sense to dominate that space if no one's really actively looking there? It's the same thing as like if you're going to play in the social space, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or whatever, is your average customer spending and looking for businesses when they're ready to buy in those social media platforms? Maybe it's a referral. They're asking their friends if they know someone, but that's different. That's like a business card being passed out. You're already a branded search. Do you want to advertise in front of them? That's really disrupting someone's frame of thought and hopefully swaying them to want to use you, like a TV ad, like any radio ad, magazine, newspaper, brochure, right? All these ads are hopefully they need you at that moment, and then hopefully they'll transact and call you. But it's not sustainable. That's the thing. It's not working for you 365 days a year, 7 days a week. The usage is not there. And that's why I loved and I really transitioned from Yellow Pages, which was what Google is 20 years ago, right? And before, to what it is today, right? So for me, it was a fairly easy transition to really start this business because I lived that space for 5 years before I started this company.
Yeah, so, and if you do want to be on social, it makes sense like to be on Facebook more than it probably does to be on MySpace, right? So it's kind of the same comparison when it comes to Google and Bing and these sort of things as well. I did want to ask about Google My Business,
yes,
which is a relatively, I guess, new product put out by Google, only a couple of years old, which we have found working really well. I'm not sure if you've found that as well, but do you want to cover a little bit about Google My Business, why it's maybe important? And then I've got some questions about the content to upload there.
Yeah, definitely. So Google My Business is very important because as you know, most people are searching, but localized searches, right? So they're looking in their nearby community. And most people don't travel over 2 to 4 kilometers. If they've been living in an area, they want a local service person to service them, right? They want to support local more than ever, right? So what you need to do is just be there and present. So how do you dominate that space? First off, run a good business. Make sure you have verify and claim your Google My Business page, but then populate it, put it in the correct category, put in all the services you offer, put in a little description, put images up. It's like your own website, but on Google's platform, and people can actually transact without going to your website there. You can click to call, you can go on Google Directions, you can map it, people can read reviews there. It's great. Make sure you populate it and use it, because what I see Google trying to do is own your website presence now. They want to own everything so that they can dictate what goes on, because they know everyone's going on Google multiple times a day. So if they understand the behavior of the users, then they're going to somehow put more ads in front of people to monetize, right?
Yeah, their money is controlling the flow of your leads or customers.
Exactly. And then, of course, where they make their money is ads. So at the top of Google My Business, there's actually a rotating ad as well for all service-based businesses like plumbers and electricians or whatever it may be. So you can pay to get amount of leads. But again, paid leads are a little bit different than organic leads. You'll notice the different quality. Someone that's vetted through paid, all they care about is quotes and price. Someone that's vetted through organic, it's more of that journey that you guide them through and educate them through on your website. So it's so important to understand who you want to position yourself as. And that's why we talk about like knowing who you are as a business owner and your unique selling proposition and your ideal customer.
And probably one thing to note too about the Google My Business page, as with your map listings as well, right? If you've been in business for more than a couple of years, you probably have one, because Google tends to do this automatically and pick different things up from around the web and form a listing for you. So it does make perfect sense to first of all claim it and get some control over your reputation online, and then put some time into obviously building it. So Google My Business you can post to.
Yes.
I know the post lasts about 7 days, or exactly 7 days I think it is. So how often should you post to Google My Business? Because the reason for this question is that we had a situation maybe 6 months ago, I guess, something like that now, where we stopped posting to Google My Business, and the amount of traffic we had through Google and through our website and through that listing really dropped off. Now, I'm not going to pretend for a second that I've understood the Google algorithm and worked out the secret, but it seemed to be the only thing that I could figure out that had actually changed. And then when we went back to obviously posting pretty regularly, it started to come back over time. So it may not be this, but I'm just wondering from a expert's perspective whether you've noticed similar things, and indeed whether posting regularly is a good time, or is a good thing to do rather.
So I always say it's like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, right? Focus on creating good content that's relevant. You don't have to post weekly, but you should make it a couple times a month. Post so that you have something of substance that you want to let people know about. So if you have a special promo, winter special, summer special, whatever it is, if there's a COVID something going on that you want to broadcast to your community, something newsworthy, something that is unique to your own, or a new product or service offering, or whatever it is, like a special day coming on, like Mother's Day, Father's Day, or whatever, makes sense. Broadcast that. But what you also need to understand is Google, they always rank based on how you perform based on some of the other competitors. So if your other competitors are doing things better, more reviews, more content being published, more posts, more links, less errors, other factors also play on how you rank. So you always have to focus on positioning yourself as the expert. And Google is not a one-time set and forget. It's an ongoing basis. It's like your online presence, but on an offline business. You never stop working. So you should never stop your digital presence. It should always be looking for and figuring out what's going on in the industry. What is your competitors doing? And trying to beat them with better content or fresh information or whatever it is, get more links or less errors, because there's always algorithm updates with Google.
And you never know when your history of posting, as an example, may come into the algorithm and really make things fly, I guess, because that does happen from time to time, right? There's a tweak and you'll see things take off and you can't quite figure it out. And most of the time it just comes back to this fundamental message that you've been sharing today, and that is that you do the right thing over a long period of time, and generally, good things happen.
It's best practice for sure. Just make it a habit.
Yeah, of course. Like exercise. It's not a this week or this month. It's a rest of life thing, really, if you're going for health and fitness. So a couple more things on Google My Business. Uploading photos. Do you have to name the photos like you do for your website? Because I've sort of been thinking about this recently, and I had two schools of thought. One, yes, you should, because it helps find them. But second of all, I thought that Google My Business seems to be pushing more for unique, relevant, up-to-date content. So if you're editing, manipulating, renaming images and then pushing them to that platform, then maybe that suggests that it's not unique and relevant. So maybe a photo straight off your camera roll is the way to go there. This may be totally irrelevant as a question, but it's just a thought that I had, and I thought I'd get your views on it.
I think it doesn't hurt, because all it is to sort it easier so that Google could then index it properly. And the more custom information and images that you put out there, just rename it, right? It's like any file that you have on your computer, just rename it.
And just make it easier to find.
Make it easier for Google to find.
But yeah, of course, yeah.
So that what you're trying to do is make it easier for yourself, but also Google, right? Which is ultimately what you're after. And there's ways, like I'm always talking about just doing best practice. Make it as easy as possible. Any process that you have running a business to become more efficient, it's all about the same thing about your website, right? Make it as efficient and easy for Google to detect the stuff that you're doing so that they don't have to try to figure out themselves.
Of course. Reviews. Such an important thing. Reviews for businesses that do it. This is really a a secret of online marketing. I mean, a very obvious one, but if you do it, you do get good results. At least we've found anyway. So
yeah, so reviews, reputation management, it's all about like third-party reviews. And we could write reviews on your own website, but it's when a third-party vendor like Google or Yelp or Facebook or whatever it is, someone else writes about you, right? And loves your product or service. And what you need to do is make sure you manage your reputation and audit it once in a while, because a negative review can really have detrimental impact on your business. And make sure you have a habit of not just asking for more reviews, but also commenting and responding to all reviews, positive and negative. Because people are reading it and sorting it not by top reviews, but the least popular reviews now, right? Because people know that people are faking it now, and they trust reviews more than a word of mouth kind of person. So you have to make sure that it's genuine and just run a good business. People are more savvy than you think.
yeah, definitely. And also one of the things that we've certainly found helps is not only asking people to do a review to start with, but also guiding them through maybe what a good review could look like. Because great job on Thursday, mate, is probably not as good as we called Matt, he came out, he did this, he was fantastic, our service was great, whatever it happens to be, cleaned up afterwards. So you want to have them mention, I guess in some ways, keywords, but also the critical things that people look for when they're trying to find a business or service that you provide, right?
Yeah, so make it as genuine as possible and as detailed as possible and as authentic. So as much as you want keywords in there, Google will know that you're kind of pushing it, or it may be fake if you kind of push that. So I always just say, be honest and do what you feel is right. And try not to get 5 stars all the time. That's not running a real business. People know there's going to be some negative people that you have to deal with, right? And that's a matter of life. So I think a 4.7 star rating is ideal for every business owner. So be real with your business. Everyone wants to strive to be perfect, but really perfection is never going to happen ever, right? There's always people in there that you can never make happy.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, you can't be perfect 100% of the time. That's absolutely the case, at least for me, I found. Keyword stuffing, which is sort of like a term that you hear thrown around a bit. So on one hand, we've got put as much stuff in as we can, but then there's this keyword stuffing, which is kind of like putting too many keywords into a post or into a site. So where's the balance? Does it just come back to the same theme we've covered a few times here, and that's just be authentic?
Yeah, exactly. Authentic, genuine, because we have a lot of software and tools, we can detect what's the keyword density, what's the mapping looking like. That's what SEO is about, right? Like monitor trends. And there's a lot of testing that goes on. So as much as we want to make it as authentic, we also want to help you rank as well. So understanding which sites rank based on what's the density, what's the variations, but make it as natural as possible, right? In your own words, because what we're trying to do is position yourself as that leader, that expert, right? So I always say, just be real. If you're going to talk about anything, don't keep talking about that one phrase, because that's not a real conversation. If you're going to really do it, you're probably mentioning it a couple times and then go into depth about that certain keyword, about how you're doing it and what really goes on.
It's pretty annoying, right? You come across a post and it's like, John, the SEO man from Toronto who works in Toronto from his office in Toronto, which is a great part of Canada, whatever it is, and you get Toronto 16 times in the first paragraph and it's like, yeah, that's probably not going to fly.
Yeah. But Google knows, right? Their rank brain, their AI, they know. So don't try to trick them. They'll read through it, and even the customers, they'll know. So really focus on writing for the user and your customers and not so much for Google.
Yes. Yeah, of course. So how do you stay on top of all these changes? Is it reading? Is it research? Is it testing? Is it trying different things? Like how do you stay on top of this? Because what did I hear the other day that Google makes some ungodly number of changes to their algorithm every day.
Yeah, I think it's like 9 changes a day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But there's major changes that really impacts a couple times a year. I always go back to foundational things is take care of your customers, understand how to run a really good business, and everything will work out in the end. People who are trying to hack things or trying to trick the system are never going to succeed in the long run. So yes, slow and steady, produce great results. No matter what, don't overpromise, take care of your clients, just run a good business. In terms of what I do, yes, I read a lot on a lot of different software. I go on a lot of webinars. I host a lot. I go to a lot of conferences, reading a lot of blogs. I mean, yes, it's kind of overwhelming, but I enjoy this because this is the space I'm in. I have to make sure that my clients are on top of what's going on. So there's a lot of trial and errors and understanding this, but people understand that as a business owner, as long as I'm trying my best, that's all I can do. And if they see that and they know that you're in it for them and not for your own purpose, they'll want to stay with you. They'll want to be working with you forever versus I already gave you a shot and you never produced because you overpromised and all this stuff. And I'm like, look, I am very transparent right off the bat. And if people like me or not, that's how it is, right?
Yeah. Well, it's you can't fake it for very long, right? So you might as well just go with yourself up front, and those that like you, and those that don't. It's kind of one of those facts of life, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
So you've built a fairly sizable team now. So I wanted to ask about sort of how you've gone about that, because it requires a fair bit of background knowledge, I'm assuming, to work across so many different industries, right? Because when you're talking about content and these sort of things, you kind of get in and understand people's businesses, which there's got to be a certain type of person that is going to do that research and bring that enthusiasm to work. So how do you go about finding good people, and how has the growth of your business sort of happened over the last few years?
I was kind of accustomed to working with so many different verticals and niches while working at Yellow Pages. So my book of business, a couple $1 million, a couple hundred clients. So I was used to just taking care of them in different aspects, different verticals, and understanding them. So transitioning to similar role where my job was obviously a lot more hats, like operations to actual deployment to understanding SEO and deploying it to now managing staff in a leadership role. It's an evolution. I keep making mistakes. I own up to it. I enjoy it. There's a lot of learning, but yeah, growing a team is not easy. Hiring the right people is not easy. I made so many mistakes, but you own up to it. You kind of do things better, be transparent with it, let people know on it about your journey, right? And it was never this rosy early days. I would take on any client and not knowing if they even pay me, right? All these things are all about you hopefully just try to do good work, be honest, transparent, and hopefully people see that in you, that you eventually will grow and scale, right?
Do you mind me asking what the size of your team is just roughly now?
Yeah, so we have about 30 staff right now,
okay,
servicing hundreds of clients. And we take care of our people, right? We take care of our clients and making sure that, as much as they vet us on onboarding time, we vet them more to see if they're a good fit. Because we get a lot of inbound leads as an SEO agency. It's all about are they a good fit? Because everyone can say things and want to help them, but do I actually see that I want to really help them? Are they aligned with my core values? That's more important to me today.
And how do you find, if you want to find, obviously you're a great option, and you do work in Australia with some people, is that correct?
So we don't have any clients in Australia. Usually it's North America that we have clients in. But yeah, for us, it's all about vetting them, making sure they're in it for the right reasons, and they're not only just staying on top of the industry and ranking themselves well, right? Do reference checks, back checks, check them out. It's like you buying a home or you doing a big contracting job or a big plumbing job. If you're spending thousands of dollars, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing. They're experts. You vet them. You check out the references, call some people. You don't just go on a whim with hiring and taking on anyone. This is, I would say, more of a extension to your existing business, because it's more about someone that you want to really work with, because you're giving access to a lot of information right off the bat. cPanel hosting, domain access, all this website access that anyone who is not in the best interest can really harm you. So vet them well.
Yeah, they can. So, what do you look for in a good agency? You being one great choice, obviously, but it is a bit like that. It's kind of like finding an accountant, right? You can't have an accountant without, revealing your books. So you've got to give an agency access to all of these things, which means that if they can do great things for you, as you just said, they can also do harmful things very quickly. So How do you find a good agency?
Yeah, word of mouth referrals, just like traditionally without the internet, ask people. But if you don't know people, then you'll do searches online, but fully vet them. So do your due diligence, call a couple people, understand a little bit about this industry so you can ask intelligent questions and then vet them. Make sure they understand the industry that you're in and really can help you position yourself with a good track record. So all these things are paramount to not just any SEO agency, but any marketing campaign, branding, or running a business like mentor, coach, or anything that you're looking for, like personal trainer, a health coach, a nutritionist, whatever it may be, right? Like you want to make sure that you go with someone that is going to really take care of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you see as the biggest challenge for you personally, John, in maybe the next few years as I assume you're going to, or the plan is to continue to grow the business?
Yeah, like for me, I enjoy what I'm doing right now. I've more focused on elevating my staff to be taking on more responsibility so that I could do stuff like this, which is way more fun. I feel like I'm giving more away, which is my time, but I'm also wanting to make more of an impact where I enjoy helping not just entrepreneurs starting off, but like someone that's frustrated, having challenges and helping them, guide them. As long as they have the same right values and stuff that I feel like I'm kind of living. For me, it's all about just making impact more than anything. And yeah, next few years for me doesn't look like I'm changing much. I love traveling. I love, expanding my team, but really just looking for good clients, good staff, taking care of my people, making sure everyone excels. Like even during this COVID, we actually kept growing and hiring because we were able to maintain good relationships with all my clients and also like picked up good staff that other agencies were letting go of good people, right? So I kind of was able to poach some of them, but not poach because they got let go.
Yeah, it's a super interesting time because I noticed that Google also felt the pinch in a lot of ways because they started dumping credits in businesses' ad accounts, right? So not a lot in terms of what your overall spend could be, but the cost of ads went down, and I think they've probably come back up now as we've started to see the other side of this. But yeah, it was a good time in the online world to run ahead, without any restrictions, I guess you'd say.
Google ads, people were not spending money. People wasn't able to go out and transact anymore because all the services, all the storefronts were closed. So people were now looking at positioning themselves long term. So that I guess for me, I was fortunate enough that people understood, like if you were playing in the ad space, you want something that's positioning yourself as an expert and thought leader. So it is a long-term play, but it's worth it in the end because when things pick up again, and it's a matter of time they will, you want to be positioned so that you pick up all the leads that people are now searching. And people are consuming content more than ever in front of a computer because now everyone's stuck at home. Then, what else do you have? Like Netflix or computers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So put the content out there for people to find. I agree with that. So just a couple more questions, John, because I want to be respectful of your time and your evening. And I know you've got a family to get to. So are you a reader? Are you a studier ongoing? Do you have any book or documentary recommendations that you can share?
Yeah, so for me, the last 6 to 8 months, I've actually been transitioning a lot, learning about my nutrition and taking care of my body more because as a business owner, you were go all the time. And it was an afterthought of really like eating better. But even during this COVID case, I've been really focused on grass-fed, paleo, taking care of more like the keto stuff, which is more about the mind. And because for me, it's all about if you can take care and control your body and nutrition, your health, you'll endure a lot more pain and overcome a lot more in life. So the last 6 months, I've been reading 2-3 books a day. Right, a week, sorry, not a day. And really for me, it's all about learning every single diet from carnivore to keto to paleo to vegetarian, and then make my own decision and understanding from the experts what's going on because big industry versus doing your own research because you can control that. So for me, that's really what I've been focusing on. But there was one book that really resonated with me, which is Give and Take by Adam Grant. And that was really good in terms of understanding where you're at in terms of your business. Are you a giver or a taker? And if you are a giver as a person, you'll be much more successful in life, not just as an entrepreneur, but as an employee, as a family person, as a anything person, right? So it was a great book for me and it really resonated. Even though I've been doing it, not knowing I've been doing it, it really just reinforced what I've been doing.
It's been a great time, hasn't it, in some ways, this coronavirus period, because particularly checking in with ourselves and just auditing, do I really need to do that? Do I have to go and do that? Now I can't do it, so I'll find another way. So it's been very interesting to do the check-in with ourselves and, and run through a number of these things that you're saying. Like as a business owner, you often don't get time to study diets, right? You need to eat because you've got to get to a meeting or you've got to get to, to a flight or to a whatever, or to home and to the family. So you tend to keep moving, but it's been a good period from that aspect. John, if you could have one law changed, what would it be? A law changed or implemented, I should say. It's a question that I do ask everyone.
Yeah. So for me, I think every business should have some sort of social cause in place. I feel like we're the ones that are making the biggest sacrifice, but also the biggest difference in people's lives, right? So if you can actually make an impact and you can actually help others by doing good, I think that's mandatory, especially these big companies. They should have a revenue share or some sort of revenue percentage given to a social cause, because they're the ones that have the hugest tax breaks. They're the ones that have so many benefits. Even though they're employing a lot, they get government subsidies and grants. They're not even taxed, these big companies like Amazon and the large corporations out there, right? Like they're Apples and Microsoft, none of them are taxed. Why should the little guys like us, small, medium-sized businesses, we're highest tax bracket, we're the ones taking all the risks and we're not benefiting much, right? Like compared to these big wealthy corporations, which is run by, lobbying companies, right?
Yeah, so a social cause, I think it's so important, right? And particularly, if nothing else, to get you out of that mental space of just running your business, but actually having a bigger impact, which is, I know, part of what you're doing and many others do as well. But to give some thought to that is certainly important. So, John, your website is localseosearch.ca.
Yes.
Being in Canada. If someone wants to get in contact with you, I'm assuming that LinkedIn is probably the best. Is that right? That's where we connected?
Exactly. And you can find me on LinkedIn on the team page on localseosearch.ca. And there's an icon. I guess you can find me, John Vuong, there. And there's a LinkedIn icon there. You can connect with me on more of a direct level there.
All right, perfect. Is there anything that you wanted to add, any parting words, John, before we wrap this up?
I think I had a lot of fun, Matt. Run a good business, take care of your clients, build really solid relationships, and understand how you differentiate yourself. End of the day, this SEO space or running a business is challenging. It's not meant for everyone. And if you understand how to take care of your clients, and it's more of a generational thing, not like a short-term 1 to 5 year thing, but you really are passionate and you're serving a purpose and you really want to help, that's when you have something and you enjoy what you're doing. So for me, it doesn't feel like I'm working because every day it's like I wake up, I'm refreshed. Not only do I read a lot, but I also embrace it. I take care of my clients. Just happy, right? To be alive and being able to help and assist other entrepreneurs and businesses.
Yeah, perfect. You have young children, as do I, and I tell them almost every day, to be nice to people and to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that over a long period of time in life and in business, then things tend to work out pretty well. And on top of that, it also allows you to do things like SEO and other, apply other strategies and techniques to your business to really bolt a turbo booster or whatever you want to call it on, right, and really help you in your growth. So, John, I thank you so much for your time today, sharing what you have, and look forward to staying in touch.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Matt. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Cheers. Hey everybody, it's Matt again. Thanks for listening. Just a couple of things before you guys clock off. You can get all Trench Talk episodes at xrm.com.au/podcast. You can also sign up for other goodies at the same site. Just plonk your email in there and you are covered. That's X for X-ray, R for Romeo, M for Mike.com.au @SEOSearch.com/podcast. If you really like what I'm bringing you, please head to iTunes, subscribe to this show, and leave a review right there. And lastly, if you want to contact me directly, type the @ followed by Mr. Matt Reynolds into your search bar and you'll find all the social links. Goodbye.